recording. So there we are. I think you can, when you share your screen, I assume you have slides. I haven't asked you. But if you share your slides, the recording will be of the slides plus you talking. So, yeah. Okay, so welcome, Cheda. It's great to have you here on this talk. I've known you for quite a few years since we met in it was in Sicily, I think, in Italy.
Yeah.
For the TRE conference there. That was a great experience. And I always found your topics interesting, what you share in your newsletters and your topics for courses and so on. So I'm happy to have you here to talk about developmental reflexes and so on. And I will give you the word so you can introduce yourself and the topic as well.
Okay. Thank you, Hans. Thanks for being here. Pleasure to be here, and I've seen some of your episodes and the great initiative, great effort. Well done, Hans. And I'm glad to see so many people interested in this subject. So I'm Cheda. So I was born in Serbia. I grew up in the UK, and I live in Italy now. And I go back to the UK and Serbia, and I travel around Europe, just for work. And just want to make sure that you hear me okay, because yeah, my internet connection is okay, or has been early on. So in case you don't hear something, you don't understand something I say, do say so. So I'm a naturopath, I'm a craniosacral therapist, and I also am a TRE trainer. I can say I'm a senior trainer. I've been in TRE world since 2010. So yeah, 14 years is going to be, I think, in April or something like that. So it's been a while. And I do like human body. It's my favorite subject. I do love touch. I think touch is the most amazing thing that we as humans possess, and I mean touch in all its expressions. So not just by kinesthetic touch, by touching body or another human being, but what I'm just saying, that's the wavelength is touching the particular parts of the middle ear, and that's how you actually hear me. And the way you see me is by some of the photons that touch your retina as well. So it's all about touch. That's my view. And just to say also, the touch, that it's the first sense, in my opinion, my humble opinion, not the olfactory nerve and the smell sense that embryologically develops first, but when we were in the uterus, we were touched and held by all our body continuously. So that's how powerful we developed. The nervous system developed from the outside inward as well. So, and I think that this is very relevant to the subject today. I think it's very relevant to life. And yeah, so that's some of my research into neuroscience, and currently I'm actually studying this crazily advanced course. I was brave enough to jump on the boat with Robert Melilio, which actually is the guy who I learned from a lot about primitive reflexes. He ignited this fire a few years back. Because I knew about primitive reflexes, but my knowledge was very limited. And I'm here actually to challenge all of us. As a matter of fact, I'm here boldly to challenge the whole TRE world, and also other therapies around. because TRE has been considered by many of us, including myself, and therapeutics at large, as a great tool for emergency shock trauma treatment. And that's true. That has been, in practice proven I'm sure for all of us really is incredibly valuable. But a lot of people had a lot of criticism about TRE being useful, of any use for developmental trauma. And I'm here to say it's phenomenally useful for developmental trauma. And that's my own work and research in the last few years. And that connection that I'm making and I'm going to be sharing with you is to do with the primitive reflexes. What I know about primitive reflexes, or what I knew about primitive reflexes, that these were the involuntary movements that manifest in babies or fetuses' body and babies' body later on. And they help development of more complex movements. And they usually mature within 6 to 12 months. That's, if you ask any doctor, medic, pediatrician, or any expert in the field, that's the case. And, and that's it. However, some of us express some of these movements in a situation of shock, hard trauma, with particular in senior stage of life, with Alzheimer's, with dementia, with some other illnesses. Some of these primitive reflexes seem to come online. So observing that, I was quite curious and I inquired further into this, and I came across this guy, Robert Melilio, and that's thanks to Richmond Heath, our TRE trainer from Australia. He's done a great video, which I'm going to play in a minute. And he actually is expert in working with children with primitive reflexes. Great scientist and neurologist. And as I said, I'm actually studying with him right now. Really advanced brain. And he actually says in his more than 30 years of experience, he claims that at least 50% of all adults have retained primitive reflexes. And most doctors and pediatricians, disagree with this. They just simply assume, what was told, what has been presented to them in school, and so on. However, the Melilio noticed that many adults have these reflexes. I notice I carry some of the primitive reflexes, and I worked with a lot of people in my career so far, and I noticed a lot of people seem to be expressing some of the primitive reflex. So when I went deeper into that, I realized that actually there is something to this, and I wanted to, rather than being dismissive or submissive or any of that, I wanted to learn more. And as a matter of fact, I did. And then, you open little thing, and then Pandora box opens up. And so in order to understand more about primitive reflexes, you need to know more about the brain. You need to know more about sensory system. You need to know about the motor system. You need to know about the limbic system, brainstem, all of these things. So I'm not going to go into all of that here, but I'm going to share some of my experiences and some of the pure science here and some of the visuals to give you understanding that TRE specifically is so profoundly useful and powerful in working with this subject, and particularly with developmental trauma, that, is still for me mind-boggling. But the problem is, most of us, we don't know about the brain enough. We don't know about nervous system enough. We don't know about primitive reflexes enough. So if you don't know something, you don't know that you don't know. So if you don't know something, you can't particularly see on your client if he expresses or she's particular movements. You will just assume this is the movement, and that's that might be interesting. But any pathway, proprioceptive, sensory, motor connection with different parts of the brain, different response, it will be unknown to you. Certainly was unknown to me, even though I have 30 years of experience in a complementary medical field. Anyhow, so I'm here to boldly claim these things, and you feel free to disagree, but come with some facts with the disagreement, not just because you like something or dislike or believe or don't believe. Do some research, and then please let's open the discussion. Because I really like to put TRE more at the forefront of some of the deeper work, particularly with developmental trauma that affects all of us. Yeah, not just developmental trauma, but development as such. How do we develop? The stages of just the development of the body, of the nervous system, of the later limbic system, and our emotional states, our behavior, our habitual patterns, all of that is actually based on primitive reflexes and this early development. So if early development goes well, and that's a difficult thing to say because baby might fall, someone might have illness, life happens, But just to say, if particular circumstances take place within us or around us as a child, that will affect us. So if there is a key point in particular developments of particular movement or particular brain structure, particular behavior or emotions, you will see that will affect us potentially later on. But let me be a little bit more here specific and because I don't have too much time, I think I have enough time to tickle your. So let's just do this. Can you see this, the slide? Yes, no?
Yes.
So something really...
Thank you.
Okay, so something really important here is taking place. Some of the teachers are saying that the main function of brain is to regulate movement, and then has some other secondary roles. So that's a famous quote of one of the great neuroscientists and so on, and there is a whole team of people that actually worked on that basically the brain is a regulator of all movements. But how does brain develop? How does nervous system develop? We need to go bottom up. So the brain develops, and nervous system develops, and our body develops through movement. So initial cause of any development is movement. Okay? And as a matter of fact, it's the involuntary movement that precedes all other movement. And what TRE does, it uses involuntary movement. Okay. So 85% of our genes are building brain networks through movement. That's vastly important, I believe, and vastly undermined and overlooked. So the development of embryo and fetus has been studied profoundly, and it's highly complex. But what is useful to know that the initial movements are so-called these myoclonic twitches, or these kind of vibrations that particular body or organ or expresses, and that's how, as a matter of fact, gets innervated. So the Alfred Vogel talks about fetal twitches. They create electrical and chemical discharges in the nerves and the peripheral muscles, and these discharges are helping nervous system and brainstem and spinal column to find the targets in muscle proprioceptors. So it's linking brain and body. So these involuntary movements, little twitches, in reality are creating connections between different neurons, different axons, different organs, different body parts. Okay? And once these neural connections are made, twitches continues to develop some of these body schemas or so-called body schemas or particular body patterns. Okay? So reconstruction of the body schema following disorders of embodiment awareness might reactivate the same spontaneous prenatal and neonatal discharge that were used to construct the body schema in the first place. Okay, this might not be as clear, but I'm going to show you the video now to describe that, exactly what I mean.
In the first 4 weeks after conception, neural tissue known as the neural plate forms in the outermost layer of embryonic cells. The neural plate folds to form the neural groove, then curls to form the neural tube. This tube differentiates into the forebrain, the midbrain, the hindbrain, and the spinal cord. Between weeks 4 and 8, the embryo grows rapidly and the face becomes recognizably human. The eyes on the side of the head begin to migrate forward, and 2 distinct hemispheres of the cerebral cortex emerge.
Okay, so most vertebrates during the prenatal and newborn period show spontaneous muscle contractions called myoclonic twitches. Okay, so that's what Alan Fogel is talking about, and it's a great book to have.
You see? Sometimes that kind of gets them waking up a little bit.
Oh my goodness!
See that?
The fetus doing
That
TRE.
really woke up.
I'm joking, it's a joke, but it's doing involuntary movement there.
Look at that!
The nervous system is not fully constructed or formed, neither is brain, but there is movement. As I said earlier,
It's a
this
baby.
connection with the movement and development is fundamental here. So, Alan Fogel goes to say the fetal twitches create electrical and chemical discharges in the not yet innervated peripheral muscles. These discharges help the nerves growing from the brainstem and spinal cord to find the targets in the muscle proprioceptors and motor neurons linking brain and the body. So we see another fetus here, 12 weeks, and we can see the movements. Once the neural connections are made, twitching continues to help calibrate the body schema by detecting limb weight and distance from other parts of the body. And that also carries on in as babies.
Wake up, baby.
Still morning.
You can see.
Yeah, cut this for you.
There it is!
Holy moly, you got the thing go.
God!
Just
It just flipped around.
ask you here to observe the position of the legs of the baby.
Wow!
It's a butterfly position for
Why
most
did it jump like
parts.
that?
Yeah, and this is very significant
I
for
can't do
later on
anything
for you
about
to observe.
Yeah.
So look like there's
Twitching, in other words, seems to be an essential mechanism to start the development of neuromotor links that introduce one body part to another and serve to integrate the body schema. And again, baby's enveloped, it's observed the extremities, arms and legs, the positioning of arms and legs.
Same-day delivery. You can see our room packages starting at just $7.99 at Jerome's.com. I love that.
50% of us would make it back. Not wanting to document it.
Is it a camera or something?
So this Nina from Holland, she recorded, she's a TRE provider, she recorded her birth. Okay, the tremor from the baby and the father as well. Mom has finished with her tremor. But the baby and the father are tremoring currently. So this development carries on, this connection, this curiosity, this awe of what is going on, who am I, what's this, and what's that, on a very involuntary basis. Reconstruction of the body schema following disorders of embodied self-awareness might reactivate the same spontaneous prenatal and neonatal nervous discharges that were used to construct the body schema in the first place. What he's saying is that later on in life, when we go through a particular process, using any therapy or any life experience, we might come across this involuntary particular movement that expresses particular body schema or body pattern. Could be the emotional pattern as well, and body-brain emotion pattern. And often this is what we see, that people go through a particular process and not knowingly they are reconnecting with part of us that have been disconnected in the past, and usually disconnected through a particular traumatic experience. Okay. So let me just pause quickly. Any questions, any comments on this? So this is a little introduction to what we are going to be exploring. Okay. So I'm just going to carry on then. So we already established that primitive reflexes and involuntary motor responses originate in the uterus, and they keep developing and so on. What I'm going to be sharing with you today, this afternoon particularly for the tremor process, because it's not going to be just a normal TRE, I would like to bring two reflexes into your awareness that you potentially might experience or might not. And just to say that my own observation of connection between TRE and primitive reflexes is that I noticed that people who have a really good experience with TRE seem to have retained some of the primitive reflexes. And that's the case with me and with many others. Because obviously, you came across people that don't really, have a great effect with TRE or great results. They tried, okay, that's fine, but nothing special. And in my experience, some of us who were blown away and life changed, through the TRE, the big connection is that primitive reflexes potentially have stayed retained. Okay, it means they have not been fully matured. So to set up some of the movements that we invoke and we utilize and we reconnect with some of these body schemas that was presented by Fogel early on, it seems to be we are coming back into our deeper sense, into deeper essence, into this deeper balance that was potentially missing totally in an unconscious way. And so when I studied further about primitive reflexes, what came up is that retention of some of these reflexes not only affects our motor function, but also cognitive function as well, also emotional states. And just to tell you that two of the reflexes that I will mention in this, because there are over 72 reflexes, and you know, the main 10 ones are kind of the cornerstone of most pediatric work. But these two, which retained a fear paralysis reflex, where freeze response potentially comes from or is connected to through the dorsal vagal connection. But what we noticed that, and more actually, it's the more advanced, mature stage of the fear paralysis reflex. Fear paralysis reflex should mature at the time of birth, and more should mature at 6 months. That's a lot of shoots there, and sometimes it happens, but what we've seen and what Melillo mentioning as well is that they often don't. And I certainly know that's for me the case and for so many other people I worked with. But what we notice that not only motor issues we might have, so probably I might not run as well as I could, or get very tired too quickly, or be slightly disoriented, bump into things, have a sense of not being well oriented. So it will affect my proprioception, my interoception, my exteroception, all of that. But apparently what it does affects our cortisol level, the blood sugar level, digestive enzymes, a particular susceptibility to the yeast, candida, parasitic overgrowth. So affects the blood flow to the digestive tract. So for me as a naturopath, this was like gold dust, really. Not just as a trauma therapist, but often seeing someone coming really traumatized to the session, and you go through you do TRE and you do maybe change their diet and so on. But the cause, why is this person, has gut issues, chronic gut issues, chronic yeast issues, confusion, headaches, fog, all of these things. But if some of the primitive reflexes have not been matured properly, they did not help the maturation of different parts of the brain that actually regulate some of these systems. So if particular parts of the brain don't get regulated or develop properly, it happens then that your neuroception, your immune response, your endocrine response, which is related to hypothalamus, to different parts of the brain and so on, also will be affected. So that's how it goes. That's how deep this stuff goes. So lack of enzymes, gluten sensitivity and dairy sensitivity, immune hypersensitivity, chronic inflammation, cytokine activation of the brain microglia. So gut-brain dysregulation, inflammation. Okay, so all of that could potentially, I'm not saying that's the main reason, but if you tick all the boxes, you change your diet, you normalize the nervous system, you have a greater window of tolerance and so on, but you still are having issues, you're still being triggered easily, then you have to ask yourself, what is the deeper cause here? And often this might be the cause. So let me just share with you more on this and how important involuntary movement and TRE is in the grander scheme of things. So reflexes are embedded in our brainstem. Okay, so the brainstem regulates all the involuntary movements, let's say. However, that's the old TRE school, but we need to update that TRE school, because I'm learning some amazing stuff, and there's some other trainers and therapists in our community they also have more advanced knowledge, and we need to incorporate this because it's really it's very useful, and you will have better results by knowing more. So the brainstem that allows to activate and create brain networks, greater brain networks. Other parts of the brain, like limbic system, the midbrain, motor cortex, neocortex, they grow out of the brainstem. So just I'd like you to visualize, this is the brain, and the brainstem. Okay, that old picture of the brain. So this is the brainstem. This is the limbic system, and above here is the neocortex. So the first thing that is created is the brainstem, and then midbrain or limbic system, and then on top of that is created the neocortex. But these structures are not being put on top of each other. They're like a seed, like a flower. The seed grows from within, opens up 360 degrees. The flower opens in 360 degrees. So the same thing from the brainstem and the limbic system and the neocortex. So if there were issues very early in this early stage of development where those basic functions were being created, so blood pressure, the thermogenesis, the thermoregulation, the baroreceptors, the connection of the organs and enzymatic activity, immune system, all the cosmic symphony that is kind of singing within us is being created. If there was a traumatic event either in utero or afterwards, that potentially will affect maybe this midbrain. And what we are learning now, that a lot of effects are not necessarily related just in the midbrain or brainstem or neocortex. Actually, there are things called brain networks, or even a new word that I learned, like streams. So you might have a visual network, which goes from the prefrontal cortex going through the parietal lobe, going to the occipital lobe. And it's called the visual stream that connects not just one, but the range of stream of neurons and axons and so on. And then you have a left brain and the right brain, and they are asymmetrical and they produce different effects and influences. So it's this extraordinary symphony orchestra going on within us. And if particular events that is not supportive to our development, like trauma, injury, fall, assault of some kind, lack, neglect, also it's not just the violation, but neglect. It's terribly effective for not only dysregulating, but not allowing any of these formations to carry on. So imagine, of course, if there was an event that took place that wasn't supportive for our system, how we'll have a cascade effect on other systems. Okay. So just to add about primitive reflex, they also prime and develop different brain structures, and also they prepare for more complex movements later on, like postural reflexes to stand upright. So that's why assumption was within 12 months these reflexes will mature. But the power within human being is extraordinary. This health dynamic, it's so extraordinary that it keeps growing. Even if there are difficulties, the injuries, there are challenges, still the power of this blueprint is so dominant and so powerful, and it keeps developing. So how to put this, as we go further and we develop further, with particular maybe challenges, asymmetries, lack of development, there is always a chance to add and to repair particular parts that have been damaged or retained or not developed. So the part of this proprioceptive tactile feedback that we do through movement, through touch, through any therapy, through dance, through life, through connection of any kind, all of that is actually extremely therapeutic, and it's rebuilding particular pathways that have not fully developed, or they lack development and so on, maturation. So early primitive reflexes might be disrupted as a result of trauma, or they might be disturbed in the course of otherwise normal motor development. These developmental disturbances might then be the underlying cause. Sorry, let me just see. Why can I do this? Yeah. Capacities for self-protection and healthy attachment, and intertwined with disruptions caused by traumatic incidences. Proper functioning of the sensory system, like visual, auditory, interoceptive, proprioceptive, tactile, and olfactory. And these actually also the other name I use is streams: visual stream, auditory stream, interoceptive stream, proprioceptive stream, and so on, is another critical element in the overall mechanism of self-protection. As with motor reflexes, sensory systems might be disrupted due to trauma or via disturbances in the original developmental process for these systems. So what's useful here to say also is that before the motor system, the sensory system is developed within the brain. Okay, so there is, particularly in the Brodmann areas within the brain, 3, 1, 2, 5, and 7, it's a sensory cortex. And that sensory cortex precedes then 4, 6, and 8, which is a motor cortex. So if there is a problem in the sensory cortex, so we saw that uterus, and we saw the baby or the fetus enveloped. So a lot of sensory information is coming through the mother, through the environment there. So these very basic early stimuli, sensory stimuli, really form the basis for the good motor development later on. And obviously, when the baby is born, and then the first 12 to 36 months are also fundamental for the development of the correct motor function. And I'm not talking about the motor function using your arms and legs and extremities, but also the chewing, the facial expressions, the breathing, all the motor functions in the body. But the key here is that sensory system precedes the motor system and is developed, and the brain itself is developed bottom up. But the caveat is that how we function today, it's top down. And as a matter of fact, that's how the body is functioning. So it's developed initially bottom up, but is living and being regulated top down. And that is fundamental, because if your motor cortex and some of the pathways, neurological pathways, are not connected with your spinal cord or with the proprioceptors or nerve endings in your extremities, you won't be able to move. So this whole maturation, bottom up, top down, that constantly is in ongoing ebb and flow and the movement, it is fundamental. So I used to be stuck on this bottom-up approach and saying, just bottom-up approach does amazing things, and it does, definitely does. And this involuntary movement is such a hidden ingredient. But as you improve your bottom-up stream, let's say, interoceptive stream, proprioceptive stream, the involuntary movements, your emotional awareness, your limbic system regulation, all of that, then my motor function, my prefrontal cortex, cognitive function also will be more accurate, would use less energy, it'll be more efficient. I'm hoping my language is not that you're following me, but it's difficult to simplify it further. And I just want to share with you, the way I find useful, and I understand it. So I'm hoping you are following me. Okay. So and the good point here is that sensory systems might be disrupted due to trauma, or not only trauma, but lack of something in your normal development. Because often we are, sometimes fixated and stuck on particular trauma, or, something happened to me. And then we look and we fish for this particular event that affected me. But it could be a series of smaller events, or a lack of stimuli, lack of something that actually contributed to particular dysfunction later on, or let's say maybe not dysfunction, but some limited function. And within this also, there is something that we talk a lot about, which is a boundary. And that's not particularly just the boundary, when we talk in a child's development, but boundary in general is in adults. You need to have a boundary, and where is your boundary, where is others, and so on. And in psychotherapeutic and psychological world, the boundaries, it's, very strongly kind of, people focus a lot on this, and it's really important, particularly for people who are lacking boundaries, or they don't know what the boundaries are, and so on. However, I want to share with you my own kind of view on this as well, which has been crystallized and became clearer, in the last few years as I was working with this. And sometimes we used to have really strong boundaries, like very harsh, kind of a wall-like boundaries, this, I should not share these emotions or get anyone into my space, and so on. And I think in particular part of my life, that was very useful, and I'm sure for other people. But then, any rigidity, it has limited effect. And so what I would like to share with you, as I wrote here, that what I see the boundary now, it's a semi-permeable connection in a way. And it's like a cell membrane. And cell membrane, in reality, allows, with intelligence, the nutrients, oxygen, and other good stuff in, and also gets out the toxins, carbon dioxide, and things that doesn't really need. Okay, and also I think humans, we need to have a kind of a more softer boundary as well. And sometimes, sharing some good things from you as well. That's actually a boundary. You come stepping out of your boundary in a more generous way, in a more respectful and caring way, and so on. So, but also to have a boundary, to understand where, how your limit and how much you can give or not. And some of these boundaries and issues with these boundaries have been affected by those very, very early developmental stages in these primitive reflexes. So, and so, for example, if the Moreau reflex, and I'm gonna demonstrate what Moreau reflex is. For some of you, you might not know. Asymmetrical tonic neck reflex. It's a movement towards something and connection with something. So these are boundaries, and there might be defensive boundaries, but also there are connections as well. They might be protective, but also connective movements as well. So not all boundaries, because words in English, boundaries, it's quite, and in other languages, it's quite, protective. And that's really important. But I want to, in our work, I think it's important to have that dual capacity, where is a connection, where is a protection, but also connection. So anyway, that's little, additional thing that I wanted to share, which is within the scope here. So I'm just making sure I'm okay with time. I'm rushing through this a bit. This is 2 days workshop that I usually take, or 3. But I think it's a good, really nice foundation for people to open their body and the brain towards another potential avenue. So survival defense responses of fight and flight, yeah, they also require the mobilization of the body, or particular body part, and so on. But also connection. When you want to touch someone, hug someone, you need to engage with that. And so there are a number of reflexes that very early were formed. And I'm just going to share what changed for me, because usually babies are not necessarily protective in their stance. I worked with babies and pregnant women for about 4 years exclusively. And I've never seen a baby kind of protecting and putting some boundary. Babies are more curious. They look at you. They boundaries towards connection, as a matter of fact, rather than protection. And sometimes they will kind of have enough and they will turn away and so on. And I think later on we developed this more protective mechanism because of our society's constructs and structures and so on. But just that element of babies being more curious, more open, more in connection with other, and then people often don't have the boundary themselves or sensibility to engage with the baby softly. I'm here in Italy, and when they see baby, they do like babies though, but they go into their face and they touch and they make these funny faces and noises, and I'm like, oh, slow down, man. You wouldn't go to an adult and go into their face and squeeze the cheek and pull funny face. I mean, but so sometimes I cringe when my kids were young, to just keep some boundary there as well. But babies in general do kind of take more than probably we can as well. Other postural tonic reflex also, they help to mobilize the extremities. So one of the main things is for us to stand upright, the connection to sit up, to stand up, to stay upright. And we are the only kind of mammal that does that as well. And then this famous psoas muscle that we use in TRE so much, it is formed in a way that is unique to a mammalian kingdom that connects the upper body with lower body. But also rotation, movement, chewing, face grimace, connection with the heart as well, and the sphenoid bone, and so there are a number of things like Babkin's reflex, so the connection with the mouth, with the hand, Babinski reflex with the feet. You got Gallant reflex, for example, that's, profoundly powerful, a very gentle stroke on the child's or person's back. That's really, if you think you don't have the retained reflex, let someone stroke you on your back or on your belly, like an amphibian abdominal reflex, and you see how you will react. And some of you might not, but most of us do react. And if you do react, this reflex is still active, by the way. So I demonstrate this and people were laughing at how sensitive, I am in after all these years actually working with it. But it doesn't take me half an hour to regulate. It takes me 30 seconds or less. Okay. I think there is more, but let me just open space. We got another 10 minutes for some questions and answers. Because there is a lot more, but let's hope I tickled you a bit. I gently stroked, stimulated those Merkel cells in interoceptive receptors there for you.
That was very interesting, Cheda. There are a few questions here in the chat. So Ulena wrote that myoclonic jerks happen when they fall asleep as well. And she's curious about any connection to what you talked about.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what happens. Like, neurogenic tremor, sometimes people tremor or they jerk or they shudder or respond when they drop into the deeper parasympathetic state, when they allow the deeper limbic brainstem connection to be relaxed. There is no need to control anymore. There is no need to, use the voluntary and motor movements, so the body then resets. It's a kind of resetting, going back to the base. Okay. Another.
So I've noticed there, and I work with sleep quite a lot as well. So people who have high stress levels will try to relax maybe, and then try to gradually relax more and more, as you mentioned, and then suddenly there's like this jerk, and then they can't sleep afterwards. So that would be like an exaggerated version of what you are talking about. And also, or would you agree? Or
Yeah.
In this case, not just where they are slightly shivering and maybe relax more, they actually can't sleep afterwards. So I found that TRE in that case is very useful in that particular moment, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I think the main connection is which part of the brain, for me right now in my studies now, which part of the brain is actually being activated and why lobe connected with the body. Because to me, it's shocking really how little we know and why neuroscience is made so complex. Honestly, and we should know this as a therapist more, and I will insist on that, because it is beautiful. Obviously not for everyone, but this, I think new discoveries are showing that, you don't need to have this, extensive dry knowledge. There are really body brain connections that are useful, and as you just described, why particular pattern might give permission to another movement to sit, for you to shift into the deeper state, because potentially some alertness and some engagement of particular system was blocked in there, and it won't allow you to sink deeper into the theta or delta waves or whatever. So anyway, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Maggie writes as well, and she's curious if you would equate these nervous discharges with practices such as Kundalini yoga or spontaneous Qigong.
I think all therapies engage in some way or the other with this is actually who we are. These involuntary movements, vibrations, these early patterns, the later becomes more complex. That's what we express every day. So different traditions use that, and with great respect and honor for these, traditions as well. Just use whatever works. Yes.
Okay, so are you reading further down? There are questions. I can read the question.
Now I can see it. How do you use all this when working with the client? Yeah, exactly. So that's, if you want to know that, you come for the workshop then, you don't have to, but because you need to see it, and there are particular exercises, and I'm going to show in the second part which exercises you can actually test and see how your body responds to that. And if you confirm that your client might have particular, or you suspect there are particular movements that you can actually use even in TRE session, and that's my whole thing is, from some of the complexity to really narrow it down into practical skill that you can apply for you and for your client. When for Gallant, for example, when you say the reflex is still open, is that a bad thing? Does that mean it's not complete? If everything happened as it should have in the childhood, should that reflex no longer be open? I don't think it's a bad thing, but some of us have very strong reaction. And I think that's not the best thing, because if you have any strong reaction to anything, it means that your body uses vast amount of energy, oxygen that it shouldn't use. Usually body, in order to survive, will just use optimal. The key of life is really to use optimal energy for life. But if any emotion or any particular state or movement draws a lot of energy from you in order to be expressed, it means that might not be, that's my understanding, that might not be the most efficient. So what are you saying in that TRE can not only release energy but also rebuild traumatized undeveloped? Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly, and what I'm challenging, that we are not just about release, we're about reconnection. So when certain things happen to you, like we have traumatic events, often part of you will dissociate. You will freeze different parts of you because of the severity of the experience. So in order for that to be recovered, you need to engage with the process. And TRE, as a matter of fact, help reconnect through the movement with it. And that's why some of us have particular memories, that the body memory comes up, events, smells, and all of that, because you have reconnected with the part that potentially was dissociated or frozen within you. Okay, then what else? How do you integrate the knowledge in the way you facilitate, accompany your TRE session? You learn particular skill and then you apply, as much, and you will see the effect. And then if it works, it does. If it doesn't, do something else. Be brave. And we work by invite, you're not going to harm people by offering particular movement. Trust me. Have you done any assessment of primitive reflex pre-post TRE? I have in my personal practice, yes. So traditionally 30 days of repeating exercise to integrate through, though I see this taking longer in adults. And with TRE, are you focusing on integrating specific reflexes or general approach? Okay, so it's not necessarily the timeline might not be 30 days or 21 or different days, that it's 42 also. There are different traditions there or thoughts on this. It depends on severity of this, depends on the circumstances people are. And also, I don't want to be here like, okay, we need to really heal everyone and treat and fix everyone. It's just engaging into this deeper, in a softer way, deeper patterns, deeper movements, and allow them to be expressed and to experiment. And definitely you will see some improvement. And if person want to carry on, great, you go, and then you can maybe design particular way of going deeper. But I wouldn't be overly prescriptive to, you have to do this and you have to do that. So knowledgeable, experimental, but free-flowing at the same time. And there might be a contradiction, but oh well, the life is a paradox after all. I'm curious, as I feel possible that a reflex that is completed can be regained by trauma later. Yes, that was my experience. Certain types of developmental trauma is clearly connected to the retaining of developmental reflexes. Yes, I definitely in utero, shock in utero, and yeah, the excessive freeze response and so on, that will be definitely connected. And some of you who have very strong diaphragmatic movement, that's kind of expression of Moreau reflex. And I struggled with this for years, many years, until I learned more about this. So yeah, when you were dropped, you weren't held, you were left in a room to sleep, to cry yourself to sleep. Some of these moments will definitely affect us. Is it still possible to sign up to TRE session now? I'm not sure that the Hans will say that.
Yes, it is possible. Just go to the web page. I can even try to find it and post it here in the.
I'm sorry, I'm on the web page now. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay.
Could TRE movements help to restore some of the movements in Parkinson's? That is hard to control. Okay, so Parkinson's, for example, potentially it might be related to some of the early trauma. So now we know some of the serotonin receptors that affect Parkinson's and so on are affected by the gut bacteria. But the gut bacteria are affected by the Moro and the fear paralysis reflex. And no one is talking about this because not many people know. And to my knowledge, after 30 years, only last 3 years came to some awareness. And I don't have a kind of a it's a hypothesis which it's very plausible now to me, but certainly that will I lost you there. Where was that? Yeah, certainly that could be and also with Parkinson's and TRE we have a lot of good results there, not necessarily that you will change Parkinson's, but the tremor and the whole kind of state of Parkinson's really diminished, and the system was much more balanced and functional. How will this new knowledge and research into in future TRE trainings? I don't know. That's a good question. I'm hoping we will push for that. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it.
There. I think the trainings are fairly short. So. And there is a limit to the amount of topics we can address, basically. And this was talking about is I think is very good for a little bit more advanced practice and courses after training. That would be my thought on it. But I don't know what you think, Cheda, but that's my initial thinking, at least.
I agree. I think this is all advanced work. I don't think any of at our comparative therapeutic schools have some of the in-depth kind of in the foundational course. This is more in-depth work, and I think that's how what we are trying to share and develop. I think Shelley, question.
Shelley?
Thank you. Just a quick question. So because sensory precedes motor, it would seem to me that it's really important the mother's health, mental health, in terms of the fetus. And I know that they're finding more and more illnesses are related to the stress levels of the mother. So I mean, I think this really shows basically what's happening to the fetus.
Totally. But I need to correct you there. We need to move away from the mental health. Because what does that mean? I would call that more psycho-emotional somatic health, because all of that is connected. Mental cognitive is just like a small stream there within the complexity of the stream. So forgive me, I'm being a little bit bossy here, but
okay, I like it. It's good.
Definitely, why don't we prepare, like in all ancient cultures, the women before the marriage, they went through different rites of passage. They were supported by other women. Men were taken by a man. We lost that, and then we have problems. Oh, accident happened. No, I didn't know I was even pregnant. I was happened in a nightclub. And I was on some substances and so on. So all of this lack of preparation, lack of awareness, clearly will affect. How can you not? I mean, so not to be judgmental, but I really have a lot of clients and couples that have difficulties conceiving, difficulties in marriage, difficulties with children. I think we all have, whoever had children, it's the hardest job in the world. But we do need to be more informed, and not just informed mentally, but engaged in life and make choices, make kind of a more conscious choices. If something doesn't work well for you, for your body, for your relationship, for your work, stop doing the same thing and expect the different results. That's some philosophers call that madness, and we all do it. So I think bringing more awareness into just basic understanding that, if mother is healthier, child will be healthier. Not only child, but the husband will be here. I know this. If my wife is happy, gosh, the whole household is happy as well. So that's why you, as a man, you need to work hard to contain and make your wife happy, because that's downstream effect is much more beneficial.
I think, Cheda, we will end with these very wise and visionary words, I think. This was a great talk. I'm very happy you came to provide this talk. We will see quite many of you actually on the next session. I'm also happy that so many showed up and wanted to listen. We will have more talks in the future. So I'm hoping to see many of you again later. And for now, I would like to thank Cheda again for coming, and have a great rest of the day for everyone.
Cool. So I'll see you guys in 10 minutes, everyone. We're going to have be coming out, and then
we change the link. We will log off this link and go back on the other link.
Okay, lovely. Thanks, everyone. It was a pleasure to participate in this, and I hope to see you in the future. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.